Hi, my name is Matthew Griffin, and welcome to another episode of Principle, Preference, and Power, a progressive dive into conservative media. So, what I do on this show, and I've done a couple episodes in the past, so you can check them out. I just get some conservative media. I always find something unique, and I just kind of try to dive into it and kind of see what it's all about. So, what I got here is a copy of the Toronto Sun. This is a little bit of an older issue. This is from Saturday the 20th. And the title is No Rest for the Wicked. MPP's private members bill would deny Ontario benefits to ISIS thugs seeking to come back to Canada. I love the fact that thugs are the title is very expressive. But yeah, let's see what Dave Smith has going for us here. Dave Smith here. I'm assuming Ontario MPP. And this is, he has coverage on the mayoral election, money for nothing, councillors, spare cash not being used for neighborhood improvements. Ford moves into high gear. PC leaders' popularity has gone up in Toronto. They're trying to intimidate me. Councillor Mark Grimes has been target of harassment campaign, he says. And here's the big story. Unforgivable. Bill aims to punish ISIS fighters for returning to Canada. I feel a little silly doing this. It's like, do I really want to take time out of my day to defend ISIS fighters? But, let's see what it has to say. Let's see what it's all about. With a quarter of nearly 200 Canadian members of overseas terrorist groups returning home, and at least a dozen more held in Syrian detention camps, an impending private members bill would ensure that they're not entitled to benefits enjoyed by law-abiding Ontarians. The Sun has learned. Set to be tabled at Queen's Park next week, the Terrorist Activities Sanctions Act targets those who have carried out terrorist acts abroad and excludes them from such privileges as holding an Ontario driver's license or accessing provincial health coverage. And, you have some codes. I can see why a conservative would like a bill like this. I would see, first, you're punishing terrorism. Two, you're cutting benefits. So it's kind of like a conservative dream a little bit. And, for me, I can see why somebody would support this, but for me, it's just a myriad of practical problems. If somebody was willing to go to another country and blow themselves up for, a cause, taking away their driver's license, I can't imagine that being a deterrent, but I don't know. I find it very interesting. And, the reason why I decided to do this issue was because, I remember when 9/11 happened. I remember, the war on terror and, the Patriot Act and, enhanced interrogation. I remember all of that stuff. And I don't know. It's obviously, it's a complicated, practical issue. But I think, when you look back on it, when you look back on the invasion, when you look back on stuff like Guantanamo Bay, when you look back on stuff like, the surveillance, you can go back and forth on the morality of it, but I think everybody's kind of a unanimous consent. It wasn't effective. I don't think anybody looks back on the war on terror and feels like we won. So I don't know. I think this is an interesting move on the part of conservatives to kind of take away, these little things. I don't really see how it actually addresses the issue. It's just kind of like a tiny way of kind of, I suppose, sticking it to terrorists. And I get it. I think there's a lot of practical problems. There's a long list of how do you define a terrorist? Who's what kind of convictions count? What if they reform? So I thought it was interesting. Obviously, like, is this going to pass constitutional tests? But I thought it was interesting that this is what conservatives aim for, and that's my dive into it. Keeping it short today, so if you have any questions, have any comments, if you have any kind of thoughts about the whole war on terror and what are the most effective strategies, definitely leave that in the comments. Otherwise, I do hope you enjoy the rest of your day.